There is perhaps no more distinguishable sound than the call of the macaw. And in southern Costa Rica, there is perhaps no sight more beautiful than a macaw in flight. Mating for life, macaws often live to be 60 to 80 years old. There are more macaws, or lapas as they are known in Costa Rica, on the Osa Peninsula than anywhere else in Central America. The neotropical rainforests have the greatest bird diversity of all, accounting for some 40% of the world's species. Costa Rica alone has over 850 species of birds, more than the entire North American continent. Most species occupy niches from the forest floor to the canopy and eat fruit, insects, or both. Other species of birds occupy the skies above the canopy, swamps, estuaries, and marine habitats, and have more specialized diets. 70% of Costa Rica's bird species live there year-round. The remaining 30% migrate there, mostly from North America, but a few seabirds migrate from as far as Siberia and New Zealand. Thousands of people come to Costa Rica every year to go birding. With a relatively high number of eco-lodges located in or near the rainforest, seeing birds in Costa Rica's southern zone can be as easy as sitting comfortably and waiting for them to come to you. Costa Rica's southern zone is basically everything south of Dominical on the Pacific and San Isidro in the mountains. Its remoteness has sheltered the region from some of the large-scale development that has gone on in the northern parts of the country. 6 of the 40 species of toucans can be found in Costa Rica. Toucans are relatives of the woodpecker, and their most obvious feature is their colorful, disproportionately large beaks. Primarily frugivores, toucans use their long beaks to dine on a variety of fruit, although they've also been known to feed on eggs, lizards, and frogs during nesting and breeding periods. Researchers are still not totally sure why the beak is so long, but some theorize that the long beak enables them to reach far out on tree branches, snag a piece of fruit, toss it up in the air, and catch it in their mouths. Toucans benefit the forest by dispersing seeds, and along with other frugivores are responsible for the placement of many of the forest fruit trees. Toucans tend to run in small packs of 3 to 12 birds. They're not the most graceful flyers, but they certainly seem to enjoy life as they make their way from tree to tree, enjoying a virtual smorgasbord of forest fruits. Toucans nest and sleep in hollow tree holes, which protects them from hunters and stalkers. At present, their numbers are fairly stable in Costa Rica, but as with everything, loss of habitat and deforestation is a constant threat. Another neotropical favorite is a member of the parrot family, the scarlet macaw. Once found on both the Caribbean and Pacific coasts, scarlet macaws are now only found on the Pacific coast, and to be more specific, on the southern Pacific coast. Scarlet macaws are beautiful to see in the wild, and their quirky personalities make them a joy to watch. Macaws often fly in pairs or in small groups, and can reach speeds up to 35 miles per hour. Their diet consists mainly of large seeds, fruits, and nuts. They're particularly fond of almond nuts, and are the only birds with beaks powerful enough to crack open the tough husk and extract the nut. Unfortunately, the same colorful plumage that makes them such an attraction for tourists is the same plumage that has made them popular pets. Currently, all macaw species are now being threatened by poaching for the pet trade and by habitat loss. One thing being tried in Costa Rica's southern zone is reintroduction. Run by Zoo Ave, the goal is to reintroduce scarlet macaws back into areas where they once existed, but were poached or hunted to extinction.
Estamos en el centro San Josecito.
There's 3 release projects for the scarlet macaws in Costa Rica, and this is one of them. The primary goal is to release 200 scarlet macaws into their natural habitat within the next 10 years, and so they're releasing 10 to 15 scarlet macaws every year.
Zoo Ave's decision to begin the scarlet macaw reintroduction program is based on the endangered status of this species in Costa Rica, the continued existence of protected habitat within the native range of the scarlet macaw in an area where the species has been extirpated, an existing captive population, and an available source of new genetic material in the form of confiscated wild birds, which are entrusted to the zoo. It's important to begin reintroduction efforts while enough genetic material exists in the wild to help sustain a viable population. Reintroduction programs for endangered species, which have not yet reached a point of crisis, are potentially more likely to succeed due to a higher level of available genetic material. There are many places on the Osa Peninsula where scarlet macaws are easy to see. One is in the almond trees that line the soccer field at Puerto Jimenez. I taped these macaws cheering for Puerto Jimenez as they played arch-rival La Palma. When I wasn't looking, one of the macaws decided to see if he could surprise me by dropping an almond husk on my head. The bird had great aim and left me laughing with the thought of how cool it is that places like this still exist. I taped these two from the deck of the Oro Verde Hotel. The owners told me that they're always there and that they share the tree with vultures. They seem to be in a heated debate over personal space, and eventually one of them couldn't take it anymore and made a most impressive exit. The hours I have spent taping macaws and watching them interact with each other always leave me looking forward to the next opportunity. Puerto Jimenez is a great little town with a colorful and rich history. People first started coming to Jimenez to search for gold that in the early days could be found just by walking on the beaches. Puerto Jimenez is the biggest town on the Osa Peninsula and now serves as the gateway for travelers looking to explore the peninsula's biological diversity. There are many comfortable and affordable places to stay. Many are locally owned and can be very helpful when it comes to looking for information. There are plenty of good restaurants and bars in town. It's also very safe. The people are so friendly. With just a little common sense, your time in Puerto Jimenez will be a memorable one for sure. Puerto Jimenez is on the Golfo Dulce. Walking the beach road is a great way to see how the people that call this little town home like to relax. The view across the Gulf is hard to beat. And no matter how many times I walk this road, I'm always in awe of the beauty here. The Golfo Dulce is an amazing body of water. It's one of 5 tropical fjords in the entire world, and it's the only tropical fjord on the Pacific coast of the Americas. The Gulf is 200 meters deep, 50 kilometers long, and 20 kilometers wide. The waters of the Gulf circulate slowly, and the deepest parts of the Gulf are considered anaerobic, or without oxygen. This fact, along with the copious amounts of rain this region receives, can make the surface waters of the Gulf taste almost like fresh water, and thus the name Golfo Dulce, or Sweet Gulf. Due to its special characteristics, the Golfo Dulce has a delicate balance and is much more fragile than a normal Gulf. The Golfo Dulce is vulnerable to overexploitation by commercial shrimp boats, which currently operate without any controls within the Gulf. Local fishermen who live on the shores of the Gulf and depend on their catch for their livelihood are suffering from the effects of this overexploitation. 15 years ago, these fishermen could set out early in the morning, fish within the safe waters of the Gulf, and return to their homes by midday with all the fish they needed. Today, they cannot find enough fish within the Gulf itself. They must go out of the Gulf in their small, open boats and spend 2 or 3 days in dangerous and uncomfortable conditions, far from shore, in order to bring back the same catch. Much of the water entering the Gulf passes through extensive and fortunately protected mangrove forests. Mangroves appear to be growing on stilts, but they're actually specially adapted aerial roots which help keep the trunk and leaves above the waterline. The aerial and tap roots filter out the salt in the brackish water they grow in. Salt crystals taken up by the roots are stored in the leaves. The mangrove rids itself of the salt by shedding its leaves. Mangroves help protect shorelines by filtering out sediment and protecting the banks against erosion during storms and high tides. Known as the rainforest of the sea, mangroves provide habitat for a vast number of marine species. Although protected in Costa Rica, mangroves are under constant attack from coastal development projects that range from shrimp farms to hydroelectric projects. Their importance to the health of places like the Golfo Dulce cannot be overstated. What we fail to realize is the importance of maintaining symbiosis in the environment. When we alter the environment for our needs, the overall productivity of the altered environment will suffer. Spending time learning and observing some of the symbiotic relationships that go on continually is a great way to increase your appreciation of the rainforest. Take leafcutter ants, for example. Leafcutter ants are nature's farmers. Leafcutter ants harvest leaves, which they use to make a fungus that feeds the colony. The fungus and the leafcutter ants are mutually dependent upon one another. One cannot survive without the other, a classic example of symbiotic mutualism. Their jaws vibrate 1,000 times a second in order to cut off a piece of leaf that can be 12 times their own weight. The ones riding on the leaves are protecting the ants from a parasitic fly. Ants live in social colonies of hundreds to millions of individuals. But unlike termites, ants have varied diets, ranging from herbivorous to carnivorous and everything in between. Each colony can be regarded as a single organism, but with a very fluid body form, able to send out trains and feelers to search for food. Cohesion of this body form or colony is maintained by scent, which is the main form of communication between the individual components of the body or colony. Meandering processions of green are an impressive sight as these ants march relentlessly to and from their nests, carrying their harvest of cut leaves. The caste system of these ants is among the most complex of all social insects. The workers, all sisters, come in 5 or more morphological castes ranging in size from the tiny fungus garden tenders to the relatively huge soldiers who help protect and guide the colony and are capable of holding up to 200 times their own weight. The queen is an egg-laying machine, continually producing more daughters to replenish and swell the colony. She is instrumental in harmonizing the colony through chemical signals. There are hundreds of such relationships going on in the forest. What's special about southern Costa Rica is the sheer abundance of diversity. On the Osa Peninsula, there is Corcovado National Park, one of the most biologically intense places on the planet. On the mainland side of the Golfo Dulce is Piedras Blancas National Park. This relatively unknown forest is as beautiful as any I have seen, and you definitely won't have to worry about crowds. Further north there is Hacienda Baru, an 800-acre reserve that's gone through 30 years of restoration projects and is now teeming with life. On the tip of the Nicoya Peninsula is the Karen Mogensen Reserve. This reserve is named after Karen Mogensen, who with her husband created Costa Rica's first national park. The Karen Mogensen Nature Reserve protects the main watersheds of the Nicoya Peninsula and is part of the biological corridor, both playing a crucial role in sustaining animal wildlife and human activity on the peninsula. There are many places in Costa Rica where it's easy to see wildlife, and the whole country is definitely worth seeing. However, if seeing a diversity of wildlife is what you're looking for, you definitely want to consider the Southern Zone.